The Unspoken Rules of Sector 4 *** Part 1. The Silence of the Appalachians. The Appalachian Mountains are not just a range of hills. They are an ancient, breathing entity. They were here before the first cities, before the first maps, and they will be here long after we are gone. My name is Elias, and for 12 years, I worked as a senior ranger in a remote sector of the Smoky Mountains Sector 4. If you look at a map of the national parks, you won't find Sector 4. It's marked as a conservation buffer, a place where tourists aren't allowed and even most rangers avoid. I grew up in these woods. My grandfather was a trapper here in the 50s. He taught me the basics: how to track a deer, how to find north without a compass, and most importantly, how to listen. But he also taught me things that didn't make sense back then. Elias, he'd say, leaning over his tobacco pipe, if the woods go silent, you stop. If you see a tree that looks like a man, you don't look back. And if you find a staircase, you run the other way. I thought it was just old-timer superstition, senility. But after my first month in Sector 4, I realized the old rules weren't superstitions. They were survival manuals. Part 2. The Mystery of the White Staircase. It was a Tuesday in late October. The air was crisp, smelling of pine and rotting leaves, that specific scent of death and beauty that only autumn brings. I was patrolling a ridge near the Devil's Creek. The sun was dipping low, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to stretch toward me like bony fingers. That's when I saw a dot in the middle of a perfectly circular clearing. Where not even a single blade of grass grew, stood a staircase. It wasn't stone or rusted iron. It was wood painted a brilliant, pristine white. It looked like it belonged in a high-end Victorian home in Boston, not 40 miles deep into a federally protected wilderness. It led up about 12 steps to a small landing, and then nothing. It ended in midair. I stood there for 10 minutes, my hand hovering over my holster. There were no footprints around it, no signs of construction, no fallen leaves on the steps. It was as if the forest had simply vomited it out of the earth. I remembered my grandfather's warning, but curiosity is a dangerous thing for a lonely man. I took a step toward it. Suddenly, my radio erupted into ear-piercing static. Through the white noise, I heard a voice. It wasn't Miller, my dispatcher. It was a woman's voice, high-pitched and melodic, singing a lullaby my mother used to sing to me. But the words were wrong. Instead of "Hush, little baby, don't say a word," she was singing, "Hush, little Elias, don't look at the stairs. The earth is hungry and nobody cares." I froze. Every hair on my neck stood up. The temperature dropped at least 20 degrees in seconds. I turned my flashlight toward the tree line, and for a split second, I saw dozens of pale, elongated faces peering out from behind the oaks. They didn't have eyes, just dark, hollow pits. I didn't wait to see more. I bolted. Part 3. The Mimic in the Dark. The next week, I tried to convince myself it was a hallucination caused by isolation. Cabin fever, they call it. I went back to my routine. But the forest had changed. It felt like it was watching me, judging my every move. 3 days later, I was out with Miller, a younger guy who had just joined the service. We were looking for a missing hiker, a college kid who had wandered off the main trail. It was midnight, and the fog was so thick you could barely see your own boots. "Elias!" Miller shouted from about 50 yards to my left. I found his hat. I started walking toward his voice. "Stay put, Miller. I'm coming to you. Hurry up, Elias. He's down here in the ravine. He's hurt." Miller's voice sounded desperate, cracking with emotion. I ran through the brush, thorns tearing at my jacket. I reached the edge of a steep drop-off and shone my high-lumen light down. My heart stopped. Down in the ditch, there was a figure. It was wearing Miller's Green Ranger jacket. It had Miller's hair, but it was crouched on all fours, its limbs bent at impossible jagged angles. Its back was elongated, looking like a giant centipede under the fabric dot, and then my radio chirped. "Elias, where are you?" "I'm back at the truck. The battery died on my flashlight." "Over." It was Miller. The real Miller. The thing in the ravine slowly turned its head 180 degrees to look at me. Its face was a melting wax mask of Miller's features. It opened its mouth wider than any human mouth should go, and in Miller's exact voice, it screamed, "Elias!" I found his hat. I didn't think. I pulled my sidearm and fired 3 rounds. The thing didn't bleed. It just scurried up the vertical rock face like an insect and vanished into the canopy. I didn't tell Miller what I saw. I told him I saw a bear. But I knew. The woods weren't just haunted. They were imitating us. Part 4. The Diary of the Disappeared. I spent the next month in the archives. I wanted to know how many people had actually gone missing in Sector 4. The official records said 14 in the last decade. The unofficial logs I found in a locked basement cabinet said 312. Among the files, I found a leather-bound diary from 1974. It belonged to a ranger named Thomas Thorne. His handwriting started neat and professional, but toward the end, it became a frantic scrawl. October 12th. The stairs are back. They're closer to the station today. I think they move when I'm sleeping. October 19th. I saw a man in the woods today. He looked exactly like me, but he was standing in the middle of a creek, not moving, not breathing. He just stared at me with my own eyes. I think he's waiting for me to forget who I am. October 30th. I figured it out. The mountains aren't just stone. They are a digestive system. We are the microbes. And every 50 years, the earth gets hungry. If you hear the whistling, it's too late. The last page was just one sentence repeated over and over until the ink ran out. It's wearing my skin now. It's wearing my skin now. Thomas Thorne was never found. His cabin was found empty, with the dinner table set for 2. And a trail of white paint leading directly into the heart of the forest. Part 5. The Final Confrontation. My last night in the service was the night of the red moon. The sky was a sickly shade of crimson, and the air felt heavy, like walking through water. I was packing my bags, ready to quit, when I heard a knock on the cabin door. Knock, knock, 3 rhythmic taps. Just like my grandfather used to do. Single quotes. "Elias, open up." I brought the tobacco, a voice said from behind the heavy oak door. It was my grandfather's voice. Warm, raspy, and comforting. My grandfather died in 1998. I grabbed my shotgun and backed away from the door. "You're not him. Go away. Don't be like that, boy. It's cold out here. Just let me in for a minute. Don't you want to see the stairs? They're beautiful tonight." The door started to creak, the wood splintering. I didn't wait. I jumped out the back window, scrambled into my truck, and drove. I didn't look in the rearview mirror because I knew what I'd see. I'd see a man who looked like my grandfather standing in the middle of the road, waving goodbye with a hand that had too many fingers. I moved to a desert city. No trees for miles. No silence. Just the beautiful, chaotic noise of humanity. But sometimes, when the wind hits the corner of my apartment building just right, it sounds like a whistle. And I find myself looking at my own staircase, wondering if one day, the steps will lead somewhere else. If you ever go to the Appalachians, enjoy the view. Take photos. But if you hear a familiar voice calling from the shadows, or if you see a set of white stairs where they don't belong, don't be a hero. Don't be curious. Just turn around and run. Because the mountains are old, they are hungry, and they never forget a face. Goodbye, and don't forget to subscribe to Vigil Shadow.